Unit 26, Spelling! Lesson 1, Improving your spelling.
So how do you guys think of the world? In fact, how do you think that people do spelling, and how do you think that they spell well? Well, first of all, they do a lot of head breaking. Nope, they just did that for fun. And second of all, they do, actually, let's just go back to first of all. First of all, they do a lot of memorizing that. I mean, they have spelling bee day. I won first place in spelling bee. For some reason, they tried to get me into second place because they said I misspelled, turns out. I was using the different language, like there's the British, American, and the British and American version of English now, and they sometimes spell it wrong. I mean, differently. Turns out we were using the American one, so let's continue. I mean, there are a few tips and tricks in this video that will help you to learn and how to spell better. So, with a few charts, let's get this started.
Alright, here's our first chart. The rule is to put I before E. Every word you have to put I before E. Unless it's after the C, which is like, let me give you an example. Okay, let me first give you an example of this. To put I before E. Achieve, you have to put I before E. Chief, you also have to put I before E. And Leon, whatever that word is, you have to put I before E. Exceptions are for letters when the place where you have to put IE or EI is like right after the letter C. And so this is what happens. Let's say you have the word conceit. Now conceit has a C before you pronounce the EAT part. So you use the E before you put in the I. Same for receive. There's a C before you say the E part of the word. So there is an E before the I. And so on. You can also put E before I when the word of the E, I, or IE sounds a lot like A. Like as in neighbor and way. Like let's use the word eighth. For eighth, there is the A in the beginning, so you will have to use the EI since that's the real part. Now, what about rain? You pronounce it as ray a. So for the IE or EI, you use the EI for E before the I. Same for sleigh with the A part there, and freight with also the A part there, and for veil for the A part there, and nay for the A part there. There are a few exceptions like seize, leisure, weird, height, eater, forfeit, protein, etc. And that's just the IE or EI rule. There's way much more ahead of us. And now let's get on with it. Now let's talk about the seed rule. Now here's the thing. When you pronounce it, the word feed, you have to sound as seed. For example, since you pronounce the last seed part as seed, you will have to use the CED version of seed. Same for recede and intercede. There are a few exceptions to this, like as in one word uses, you use the seed dash SEDE to spell the seed sounds. There's one word there, but you still pronounce the end part as seed, so you use the SEDE. Supersede. And three words use the CEED to spell the seed sound. And those three words are proceed, exceed, and succeed. And what about spelling unstressed vowels? Let's say you don't know how to spell legal, but you do know how to spell legality. Then use the front part to finish your spelling and to figure out that legal is spelled like this. You can use it for all the other words and much more too. Sometimes you'll have to figure out what one of those words are and using the similar word to actually find the common part and filling in the missing blank. There's also adding the suffixes to the words with silent E rule, where whirl is this. When you're adding a suffix that begins with a consonant to a word that ends in silent E, you have to keep the E, although there are a few exceptions like and full you get awful too. But usually for the ones that work, you usually just add a place, month, you just put them together. Rarely, you just put them together. For full, you have to take away the E. And in judgment, you have to take away the E. There's no real pattern here. All you have to do is memorize them. I'm sorry. It's actually continued, but I'm not gonna show you. Oh, it looks like I am gonna show you. So when you're adding a suffix that begins with a vowel like A, E, I, O, U, or Y to a word that ends with the silent E, you usually have to drop that E. Okay, let's switch colors. Examples for this is excitable and shiny. Although there are a few common exceptions like mileage, you still have to keep the E. And when you're adding a suffix that begins with an A or an O to a word that ends in a CE or GE, you have to keep the E so that the word will keep a soft C or G sound. And when you're adding a suffix that begins with a vowel to the word that ends in E or OE, then you have to keep the E. Now, this is the general rule for plurals. If the noun ends in the CH, S, SH, X, or Z, like ch, s, like ch, s, sh, X, or Z, you have to usually, at least generally, add an ES. Then you can change wish to wishes, crutch to crutches, and usually when you have a consonant like everything else that's not A, E, I, O, U, then a consonant that's a Y, you have to add that to a Y. If you change Y to I, then you add it to ES. Canary, canaries, baby, and babies. There is a vowel. If you have a vowel and you add it to Y, you usually have to add S. For like days, day, you turn it into days, key into keys. Also, there's sometimes, although this is an exception to one of the IES rules. When you have a vowel with an O, you usually add an S, so turning studio into studios, stereo into stereos. If you have a consonant and you have to add that O, you usually generally add an ES, like potato, you have an O at the end, so you use potatoes, and there are a few common exceptions for F4FF, like add S, then you usually just add Fs. And another common exception is that you have to change F to V and add ES, so leaf equals leaves, and you sometimes have to change F to V and then add ES too, so that's half into halves and wolf into wolves, and you usually sometimes have to change F into V and then add an S, life into lives, knife into knives, and so on. Although there are some special rules for plurals, some of these are to form the plural of a proper name. You have to add either S or ES. And some examples are the Macos and Sanchez's. To form the plural of one-word compound nouns, you usually have to follow the general rules for plurals, like penknife and penknives, like those types of stuff. And blackberry and the blackberries. And to form the plural of a hyphenated compound noun or compound nouns in more than one word, you generally make the most important word plural, like father-in-laws to fathers-in-law, and attorney general to attorney general, attorneys general. And sometimes some nouns have irregular forms, so these nouns don't actually follow any rule. All they have to do is just turn it into like man into men, oxen to oxen. As I said, no pattern, you have to memorize those. And some nouns have the same singular and plural form, like series, the plural is still series, and deer, the plural is still deer. And here's one really good way to actually memorize your words and to learn to spell new words. First, you have to try to say it. So you look at the printed word and say it out loud, like leaves, and say it out loud, leaves. Then say pronouncing each syllable correctly. Unless there's just one, leaves. Then you have to visualize it. Picture the word in your mind. In my case, I would imagine a lot of leaves piled up together after I rake them. Avoid looking at it or printed or written on the page. This will help you memorize what the word actually looks like. Then write it. Look at the printed word and then write it. Then write it again and without looking at the printed word. Then you have to check it. Check what you've written against the printed word. And if you did spell it correctly, congratulations. If not, you have to restart the whole process. If you do it on the first try, thank God. So that is the easiest way to help remember your spelling and spelling rules in 10 minutes. And actually less than 11 minutes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and if you guys did enjoy this episode, and if you guys learned how to spell and how to remember new words, please consider subscribing to the channel and look at more my cat's DN posters, and I'll see you guys soon. Stand out. Peace.